Hey, Christ Church family. My name is Dave, and I am a follower of Christ. By the time I was like a young teenager, I'd already started to get into a little bit of trouble. From that point on, I kind of just floated around in complete and total darkness. Somehow graduated high school, made it to college. I flunked out my first year of college because I started using heroin. Experimentation with drugs and alcohol really turned into like a full-fledged addiction for me. I found myself, homeless, living on the side of the street, in and out of rehabs, being in and out of jail and prison more times than I can actually care to count. The first time I ever was introduced to Christ was actually inside of a jail in South Florida. The funny paradox of the whole situation is when I left there, I probably felt like freer than I ever had, and I was still in jail. And I prayed to God, whatever's in your will for me, help me to accept that. Whether it's to go home or to do this time, just please give me some guidance here. The next day they called my name and told me to pack up my stuff, and I didn't understand what was going on. And they told me I was going home, and I was like, wait, what? Like, I did this crime. Like, what do you mean I'm going home? I'm not supposed to leave. About a week after I got released, I found myself going from South Florida, and then I was homeless on the streets of Philly. And then I went, a week after that, I was in the ICU in Montana. I woke up in the hospital. I ended up getting in trouble again, but this time I got in trouble and I was on a run from the law, and my wife, who was not my girlfriend at that time, she had texted me and said that she was pregnant. I went and turned myself in on that charge, and I ended up going to prison for almost a couple years. My son was born while I was incarcerated. Started reading my Bible again and praying and just getting around people who were really just sharing that faith, that and being empowered only the way God could do it to you. I ended up coming home, and that was like 12 and a half years ago, and I never picked up another drug to this day again. Never took another sip of alcohol. One of the people that I was close to was my younger brother, Mike. He was 6 years younger than me. He did drugs like me growing up. My brother had fallen into a bit of depression. I had taken him right before Thanksgiving at the end of 2022 to the psychiatric unit in Jacksonville. A couple weeks later, I had picked him up, and he seemed like he was a little better. I had asked him, how his time was, and he told me everything was okay. He stopped answering me, so I thought it was really weird, and I ended up a couple days later going to his apartment, and that's where I found him, overdosed from fentanyl in his apartment, in his living room. And that was probably like easily the roughest thing I think I ever been through. Like a month after that happened, my son had told my wife that he wanted to start going to church. Being here was like the place where I just really was able to establish this deeper connection with Christ than I ever had before. I'm a pretty shy person, but I kind of went outside my shell and started joining groups, men's groups, Rooted, Mission Living. And like, before you know it, like I started to become excited to meet new people and to be around people. I was able to watch the same kid who really led me here get baptized. I think it was probably the most powerful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I think the most important part of everything that I learned, while I've been here so far, and like through just my strengthening my relationship with Christ, is that I'm really on a mission, like to share this with other people. That's the most important part. I'm just forever grateful to be part of this community, and also to just have a purpose in my life now and not feel like I'm living in complete darkness and walking around with no direction. Thank you for letting me tell my story.